So
Hello.
everything's set up. We'll just give people time to shuffle in as usual. Bearing in mind that
10th
this is a
anniversary.
bit of an early time for this. I have a packed day today. I was out of the house at like 9:30, got back at 12:30, ate lunch, had like 20 minutes to take a break, and then I was like, oh wait, I should probably hop on and get this ready. And then as soon as this is done, I'm out of the house again, and I'm not getting back until like 6:30. And then at that point, I don't know, grab dinner, and then I have like an hour of downtime before my next thing I have to do.
Mm.
So how about you guys? Yofa asks, so what is the campfire chat? Looking at the pin, and I'm getting that's Kit, huh? That it's a dev Q&A. Yeah, effectively speaking. We show up, we talk about what's going on, we answer submitted questions, and then if there's anything that people are asking live in this channel, we'll also answer those.
And my copy pasta. Of
Lewis says hello, Stinky, on Twitch.
course he does.
Yep. Yeah, and again, also these are recorded. I'm streaming to Twitch at the same time. These will be the VOD will then be uploaded to YouTube. And give it another couple minutes. We'll start at 35, let's say. Start actually going through things at 35. Anything for you guys lately? How's your lives been?
Uh,
Stressful, says Rising. Ah, yes, yes.
I understand.
Harold says busy. Yep, yep. It's always the case. Peter showed back up, and I was like, yo, how's it been? And he said, busy but well. And I'm like, ah, yeah, same. Busy but well. That's a good description of it. Rice says, I spent an hour making my Steam profile pretty. So yeah, I'm busy.
I get that.
I spent 3 hours making my online avatar look the best it can possibly be. Yeah, I'm busy.
Yeah. Hello, Peter.
Peter's here.
Yeah.
Numi says, it's been amazing lately, but unfortunately my vacation is about to end. All right. Was
That's
it a
weird.
long vacation? Somewhere exciting? All
Hopefully
right,
not
I
really.
think it's a good time to start now. We've given people a few minutes to shuffle in. So, hello everybody, and welcome to our 10th Campfire Chat, Dev Campfire Chat. We're closing in on a year here for when we started these. Some big news. We now have 3 new developers, those being Doom Korth, Tybe, and Roadrunner. 2 of them are
Uh-huh.
here with us right now, Doom and Tybe,
They're just
or
shy.
Tibet, whichever
Yes.
floats your boat. And we also have Peter here. I don't think we've had Peter on one of these before, have we?
Nope.
Yeah, I don't think so,
Maybe
because
snuck in.
he's back in
Yeah.
action now. I
Oh,
saw his
you lit.
mic light up, but I didn't hear
Yeah, you,
anything.
you lit out.
Northern Ireland says this is quite early for a campfire stream. Yeah, I moved it a half hour earlier than usual because I have some place to be afterward. And instead of cutting it short by a half hour, I was like, hey, let's just start a half hour earlier so we still get our usual 2-ish hours. Aside from the news of new developers, the next major update will be coming out end of this month. If you check the events here on Discord, it is currently marked for May 25th. Is when the next big update will come out. And one of the questions I peeked through the questions a little bit beforehand. One of the questions I think we could just probably hop straight to because it's topical now that I brought it up. What
Mhm.
fun new things will we be getting in 0.10.7? Anything you guys have in mind that you're looking forward to that you know's been merged?
I think we have got quite a few fighter-related changes. Uh, those will be definitely interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I will say I'm kind of forgetting what all is part of this update because I haven't been keeping up with a changelog. So
A lot of small things, but
yeah, let me
a lot of quality of life fixes. I'm trying to think of something big that I'm missing right now. Uh, Recently the missile change.
yeah, some balance changes here and there to missiles. Those are recent.
Mhm.
New uninhabited planets in human space. Those were also recently
Mhm.
added. Those will be places that if you're playing as a pirate or you're just hostile to some faction in human space, by having uninhabited planets for you to land on, that means you can have basically save points along the way. So that should help with things.
I mean, there's a few PRs that are still open that we're looking to get an update too. That might be important.
Yeah, there's still a fair amount of stuff to still to get to.
Mhm.
Kind of going through the list of merged stuff to
Oh
see
yeah,
what
the
all.
fighter change Zipper brought up.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's kind of big.
Yeah, so if you weren't here, I believe 2 or 3 chats ago, we talked about making some fighter balance changes. And one of the things we've ended up implementing is if a fighter becomes disabled, it can now no longer be hit by projectiles unless a ship is directly targeting it or it's hit by an explosion. This makes it so that you are far, far less likely to have your fighters be destroyed. They'll still end up being disabled relatively quickly if anything big is looking at them, but they should survive combat, meaning that you will be spending a lot less time replacing your fighters. And I have some more stuff planned to improve that even further. Something that I forget if I mentioned it the last time we talked about fighters, but an idea I've had is to have some sort of like emergency thruster outfit that all fighters could have by default. And what this does is when the ship becomes disabled, it will thrust itself opposite whatever its facing direction is, and potentially that kicks it away from combat. So not only are the fighters not going to be hit by stray projectiles, but they would also be further from combat when they do become disabled, meaning they will be less likely to be hit by explosions from like exploding ships or explosive weapons.
So I was actually messing around with that my own time. Some like plugins I was messing around with. I actually already found a bug with the new fighter targeting
Oh,
thing.
cool.
Um, if you have an escort and you have it firing at hostiles and it's flying, you tell it to target something, it flies to it. If there are any disabled fighters along the way that are hostile, it will still try and shoot them, but it'll just go right through them.
Hmm. So like with its turrets, or
Yeah. So like if something's across the
oh,
system,
I can
you
I,
tell it to go fight that,
I
and
can see
there's a
how
whole
that
bunch
would
of
happen.
disabled ones. Yeah, it just starts
Yeah.
shooting things along the way.
The AI, if it has a target in front of it, even if it's not targeting that enemy, it will fire its weapons.
Yeah, so it just looks like it's shooting at nothing.
So it's like doing nothing to the fighters it's firing. It's just wasting energy.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Ebop asks, is Patir 2 in 0.10.7? Or is it planned for 0.10.7?
That's kind of a big
We'll see.
undertaking that just came out. We do want to look at it eventually, but it's been something that's kind of been on the work for a couple of years now. I think is what Becca said, like 1 or 2 years. So it's going to take a minute to sit down and look at.
Yeah.
When it was opened within this update, so it's probably not going to be within this update.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool to have, but
Yeah,
no promises, no guarantees.
it does have a lot of cool stuff in it, though, I will say.
Northern Ireland asked, will you guys add a way to store outfits and ships on uninhabited planets? Well, you can already park ships anywhere. You can technically park a ship in a system without it even being on a planet. But storing outfits, those can currently only be done at outfitters, and I don't imagine we would add a way to store outfits on an uninhabited planets. The best you're going to be able to do there is use the old method of storing outfits, where you install them on a ship and then park the ship.
Hmm.
Yeah, you're definitely not going to be able to uninstall and install outfits for an uninhabited planet because that would defeat the point of outfitters.
Yeah.
It'd also kind of get around some jump drive things in later game content.
And then Northern Ireland asks, what about adding an auto hire feature for crew? And Hurl says it's already a feature. Yeah, go to your settings. I forget the exact name of the setting, but there should be some setting that said like rehire crew on landing or something about rehiring crew. And if you filled up your bunks and for the purpose of boarding, then when you come back to land, if you have that setting on, it will rehire up to whatever you had before.
Yeah, we've been getting a lot of settings lately.
Yeah. Yeah, Zipper posted a screenshot of it. It's on page 2. Rehire extra crew. And then the rest of it's covered. There's 2 now? 2 pages? Yeah, I mean, that's been there for a while, I think. At least a few updates. We've had paged settings. We've recently added paged controls. I think that's the more recent one. Right?
Geraldine asks, what are plans for fleet balance? What are you asking? Like, what do you mean by fleet balance?
Yeah, it's a big topic. You can't just drop that on us.
You mean campaign fleets? You mean your fleet?
Never really bothered looking at settings. You're missing out.
There's a lot.
You gotta
of
see
stuff.
what's there, yeah. All fleets? Do you realize how little that narrows it down?
Yeah. What about the fleets balance is your question? Actually, that's not odd.
He's just trolling us at this point.
I see. Your fleet? Okay, so the player's fleet. That's still kind of like a generic. Like, what do you think something should be balanced? Is there something that you think is going to change, or we would change, or
What is unbalanced about your fleet?
yeah? What what is well balanced? I don't know. Pierre, that was close. A lot of Pierres are close. About boarding.
Are you talking about my pull request to make boarding more difficult by requiring you to have certain outfits that are consumables? That's close because I didn't have time to work on it. But I would like to reopen
Okay,
it.
so not fleet.
Yes,
you're
all right.
talking about
Capture.
capture balance,
Yeah.
not okay.
There's stuff in the works, but nothing at the moment that's close.
We still want to expand it a little bit more than what it is now, beyond just kind of a hit the attack button and pray, or hope your numbers are higher. But we don't want to make it so insofar as it being a actual new window of like a little battle or something like that, or navigation or something like that. So yeah, it's RTS territory.
Solaris asks, are there any plans for another galaxy? If there are, they would be far in the future. We still have the first
we
galaxy
need to
to
finish
fill.
this one.
Yeah. Any plans for dynamic events? Asks Charming.
I mean, we kind of already have dynamic events. I guess that would depend on your definition of that.
I would like a bit more of a dynamic event system.
Galaxy-wide, or
but not super high priority. Time says there's already a second galaxy. Shh, don't tell them.
as for something like a Milky Way 2.0, probably that's like for very far towards the end of our completion of the Milky Way to begin with. So, if we consider it, I'd imagine maybe someday, but that's just so far out that it's not really something we can speak on right now.
Yeah.
Rebellions or invasions of such randomly between factions. So, I've said this in the past, and we try and keep it to a minimum. We don't want every single faction in the galaxy to interact with every other faction in the galaxy. That'd be quite a lot to keep track of between writers, between stories, like keeping track of characters or events. So we try and keep faction interactions to a certain amount between factions. So it's like the kind of hotspot that I've been saying is like around 4 to 5, with humans being a slight exception. So the High interact with humans, they interact with Wanderers, and they interact with Korath, or they're said to have interacted with Korath. Coalition interact with Quark, humans, technically through the player. I guess they're kind of themselves. So, but we don't want, say, to have an explicit encounter between like the Remnant and Wanderers per se, or like if we want to go into the newer stuff, Gegno interacting with the Coalition or something like that. So I guess what is kind of being asked for is like larger galactic events where an entire faction does something with another entire faction. It depends. It's kind of case based. It's not something that would be like done everywhere, but if that kind of answers your question. We don't want to try and have everything interact with everything all at once. It'd just be a lot to keep track of. But Hero says you can have invaders without being interfaction wars. Yeah, that's kind of the whole gist between the Remnant and the Korath. Is I know, like, in the past, I know there's been ideas that there'll be some sort of invasion one way or the other. There's like, I guess that's kind of larger, but it's not like it's a whole galactic wide. Oh no, this territory is going to disappear or something like that. You have your own faction. It's called Escort. Technically.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have a fair few questions,
We do.
so let's hop into the submitted questions on this spreadsheet. The first one: May the Fourth be with you always. Also, do you know that Anakin has a doctorate in Darth Plagueis the Wise studies? I do. I did know that. Moving on. Seconding the reopening of Pull Request streams, whether it replaces Campfire chats or not. Well, I don't think we want to replace these. But I did do a stream earlier this week on Thursday, going over some pull requests, and I talked about how I want to do this a bit more often. But they would, if you didn't catch that one, they're going to be shorter than they have been in the past, because I just don't have as much time these days for 4 or 5 hour streams, or whatever it used to be.
6 hour.
8 hour.
So reopening of PR streams, that's kind of, it's not really a general thing. It's a when time comes for it thing. Because as Derpy is saying, so if he has time, he'd open streams and look at PRs. I'm hoping to somewhat do that myself in the coming future. It probably won't be long ones either, but it's kind of an individual basis. It wouldn't be like an overall thing. So it's just who has time for what. For larger PRs, I can see that. Like if we have a PR that changes an entire part of the game, I'd imagine maybe we sit down and say, oh, hey, this is going to be the stream for that. We've done that before, I think, right, Derpy? Because I remember we do streams on some of the larger content, and a couple of us would be there for it. It'd be through your stream, but so we do it. It's just not something that really is an explicit separate thing from Campfire chats. Or I'm sorry, what do I try to say here? It's not like an official capacity event like Campfire chats. It's a time-based thing.
All right. Next is a big one. I'll read this one. You can grab the next ones after these. The addition of the Bunradia reflects something I don't like. All other races that were added had a clear plan in place. The Wanderers had a campaign in mind. The Gegno is being actively developed upon. The Remnant had a 10-part story in the works. Yet the Bunradia had none of these. In contrast to the 3 examples, all the Bunradia has planned to do is to act as an external source of help in a hypothetical Wanderer Part 3 in the planned Unfettered High and Korth campaigns. This alone would not be a problem had something like this were needed in the 3. Yet, up until a few Campfire chats ago, when the plan was announced, there were no indications that the development teams of any of these 3 campaigns ever expressed acknowledgement of the Bannerdia plan, or the need of such external help. In truth, the Bannerdia race seems to be added for the sake of addition, with no real regards for the plans already in place, and generated little of value on its own. The entire existence seems to be someone creating a race, getting it in the game without consulting much of the community in the first place, and without regarding the state of Endless Sky as a whole. I hope that in the future, races to be added to the game would both already have a concrete plan, development plan, and the developer have consulted the Endless Sky community about its addition, not just the core, everyone. There are many privateer members who have strong opinions on Endless Sky's story. As far as the Bunradia go, it's not that there aren't plans or that there weren't plans. It's that I haven't had the time to work on my plans. We talked about before how the Bunradia, like some of the planned interactions with the Wanderers, it wasn't so much so, hey, part 3 is going to be Wanderers plus Bunradia. The initial plan was actually, after the Wander campaign is done, then the Bunradia come in story-wise. But seeing as how the Wander campaign is actually only just now I feel like we're actually getting some things moving with the Wanderer stuff. So it's more so that the plan evolved into the Bunradia being involved potentially in a Part 3 Wander campaign. Not that that was the initial plan. But as for the comparisons to the other factions, yeah, SOG has some stuff going with the Gegno, but with the Remnant, I mean, they were kind of the same deal. The Remnant were added by MZ, and then he did nothing with them for a while. I think they had a few missions, and that was it. It was only much later when Zichaz came along and picked up development of the Remnant for himself and added a bunch of story to them. I don't know what the exact timetable on that is compared to the Bunradia. Maybe it's the case that the Bunradia have sat without a bunch of content added to them for longer than the Remnant did. But historically speaking, I would say this isn't out of the ordinary. I mean, even the Coalition was the same thing. The Coalition were added. They had, like, basically 2 missions. First contact, and then getting the license to buy their gear, their basic gear. And that was it, for the longest time, until Iraqi came along and started adding stuff to them. So again, compared to these other factions, I feel like it's not like the Bunradia are a sore thumb that nudged their way into the game, unlike anything else before.
So in this question, what kind of slightly confuses me is the end part here where it says there are many privateer members who may have strong opinions on this guy's story. Because of what Derpy just said, how factions are put in the game, kind of like with this kind of bare bones content and then built upon it, I don't see how it being in the game means that the privateers can't have opinions on it or can't further give comment to what the Bunradia could be with interaction with Derpy and whatnot. So yeah, and I don't think it's that people disagree or disapprove of them. I will say it was kind of like a it's been something that was Derpy had been working on for a while, and we kind of started talking about it a little bit more until it was merged. And I feel like we could have probably talked a bit more deeper about it, but with what others are saying, having the bare bones put in the game, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. But I would say myself, I do think there's like kind of a balance of it, which is kind of what's been happening lately, where we kind of want to go back to our roots and try and work on the human stuff again. So it's just kind of like it was kind of more of in that moment and what we were working on sort of thing. And I would say myself that we wouldn't just keep doing that per se, but I don't think it was a negative impact on the game, and it's still 100% open to feedback. So, but as for like future races out of the game, should we have like a concrete development and all that? Yeah, it's not that this doesn't have a concrete development plan. It also, like Derpy said, he doesn't have time to kind of delve into it because we're kind of dealing with a lot on other ends of the game right now. But I would say that's kind of a staple to when we're looking at adding new races in the game. So
Yeah, and Becca points out basically all the factions that have ever been added
yeah,
were added in this way. Like even the Kahet and the Builders stuff. Like did they? I think Patir 1 came a good bit later. So they had like a first contact type thing, and that was it.
Well, even the Gegno, so when I first added, I didn't add it in the game. This was before I was a dev, but when they added the game, I wasn't immediately developing on them. I had all these ideas, and I have a thought process of where I want to take them, and I think that goes for everybody who has a race. But it was only after like a few months where I finally started writing things for that. So, but yeah.
Proudly Canadian says finishing human content is more important than adding new content elsewhere. Assuming that's what that means. There's people who think the exact opposite of you.
Yeah, it's
Remember the who has the copy pasta?
yeah, stop making.
Stop working on this human trash.
Yeah.
I need to find the hop.
So it really just comes down to where our development priority is, and we do want to like I said, kind of return to the roots and kind of build back up on the human stuff. But I don't think that necessarily means that when that isn't exactly our goal, that it's a negative thing either. It really just comes
Found the
down to what
copy
we're working on
pasta.
in the moment. Yeah.
The amount of dev time spent on human trash makes me want to cry. Hope it at least makes you happy because it completely killed the game for me. Update after update, I come back hoping to see more Quarg ships, more Pug ships, hoping to see more endgame stuff, hoping to get a chance to go toe to toe with Archons and liberate humanity from all the races they think can take care of us and limit our development. Update after update, I come to the game, do 3 to 4 convoy runs with my 70 deep river convoy, then turn the game off because there's no point. At least Ursa Polaris gave me a decent money sink. This game completely wasted its potential, but hey, at least we'll have balanced ships that nobody uses after getting to high space. Yay. That's
Admittedly, that is a very strong point. But
so yeah, that's like the exact opposite approach of we should build up human content, saying nobody cares about human content, give us Quarg and Pug. Pilot says, why can't I hear anything? Is your volume muted? Sam says entertaining if nothing else, yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like there's opinions on both sides, so it's not that I understand the opinion where this one's coming from, but is coming. There's two sides to it.
Yeah. As Becca says, though, it's not an either or. We can work on both at the same time.
Yeah. Finish existing content first before adding new. I'd agree to that. I know the other day we were having a discussion with the devs, and Quick was there, and he was pretty adamant that we should work on what's in the game before adding absolutely new stuff to the game. And I mean, we can sit here and say how some things have kind of went past that in recent times, but we were talking about how we do want to come back to like HR. We do want to come back and finish the Wanderer campaign, and then we do want to come back and do Syndicate and all that. That's not to say we can't work on Alien content, but like priority-wise, yeah, that's where I'd like to see us going in the coming future. But that's kind of like the gist of it. I do want to kind of just quickly answer the little follow-up thing after assuming it's the same person. What's up with the question asking KOTOR? And I love Star Wars too, but I don't think it's related to ES. It's because it's May the 4th.
Hector was trolling, and he changed the question in the submission form to what are your thoughts on KOTOR?
Yeah. It's kind of funny because I say this a lot, but sometimes, like whenever we chat as devs, once we're kind of done through the day of chatting, like the very last few minutes of a discussion almost always turns into a Star Wars discussion. So the fact that today's the 4th, means I don't know, we're gonna probably throw some Star Wars things here and there. But yeah, that's just kind of what that is. Blame Hector. I want to answer this comment because it came up on Twitch real quick. So
Go for it.
Striperoo, if I said that right, says, what's the long-range plan with human space? The pirate direction is awesome. Is the idea that we move in a direction of human space building technology, studying other species, or becoming competent on a larger scale of their own merit? So I guess when you say pirate direction, you mean yes, we want to kind of expand upon the like areas and add a few more places in the game with pirates to have the lore a bit deeper than just a couple of angry kids in the south. But for like galactic wide technological advancement, we don't want to take a faction and have it start studying everything that the player could bring to them and suddenly increase their technology and be able to like for an example's sake fight on par with say the high or work with the high and fight something with them. So competent on a larger scale of their own merit, probably not, because that kind of thing takes quite a long time in universe. It takes many, many years for a faction to go from one tier to another. That's not to say they can't like develop new like individual things like outfits or ships maybe, but at like an overall scale, they probably wouldn't like you're saying like this comment saying here, the humans wouldn't like study I don't know, wander technology and then suddenly be able to have ships that are twice the strength as there what is currently, or something like that. But a lot of human content kind of like the extent of it is the Free Worlds campaign or the main campaign. I'd imagine we have like a little bit of like an after story someday with that. I couldn't tell you where that would go though, because that is kind of like a later down the road thing. Derpy, do you imagine us kind of taking it a little bit and kind of like a little epilogue maybe, but not. It probably wouldn't be like a campaign 2.0 or something like that.
We'll see.
All right, we'll see.
We'll see.
There are already the epilogue missions after the campaign with the various different characters you meet during it.
Yeah, that's good. That's true, because like a good example is the Coalition campaign. It's not explicitly tied to the campaign, but some of it depends on if you have completed the Free Worlds campaign, and it ties in with the human content there, and there is some interactions like that. So like here and there, yeah. But as for like kind of a larger overall jump, we'll see. But overall, the main campaign is kind of the core part of the game, so the core part of what humans go through. But we can add to it. So, next question on the sheet is not a question. I don't even know what that. Oh, is that a joke? I don't get.
I don't know.
Do you want? Are you skipping the next one, or are you just hovering the one after that?
I mean,
Yeah, that one. I guess it's kind of Star Wars related. So it says petition to make the course sister the Confederate Independent Systems censorship style does remember the CAS. I read that, I was like, you know what? Kinda. they kind of remind me of CIS ships in Star Wars. But anyway. Oh, I'll let you read that one.
how come nobody is 3D printing outfits or replacement parts at home or on their ship? Is it not possible to produce even smaller components reliably? We will tell you why right after we tell you about our sponsor, Syndicated Systems. Syndicated Systems is the single largest producer of outfits and weapons, offering a wide range of options for all your spaceship needs. From proton guns to ion engines and security stations, you will always find what you're looking for. So don't wait. Check out the Syndicated Systems products in your outfitter today and get 10% off your purchase by using promo code NukeGeminis during checkout. Nice advertisement. But it was the 3D printing question genuine? I mean, with how big ships and outfits are, you would need a pretty big 3D printer to be putting this stuff together, you know? Like some of these. And I mean, you're not making this stuff out of plastic, I would think. Alright, I guess we'll move on from there. Petition to open core chat for everyone in the Discord server to view, similar to the pirate campaign thing, to increase transparency. I mean, part of the point of the room is to have a private room for core people to chat.
Yeah, is the concern if the concern is to open it up so like transparency so more people know what's happening? I mean, transparency in what? In the Discord or about development or because like I've said before that we could be a bit more open about what we're talking about in terms of the game's development and what we want to do with it. But for the core community of the Discord itself, I mean I think it's fine that there's a chat for them to talk about them like amongst themselves.
Hell says,
And
"Don't worry, you're not missing much."
yeah, you really aren't. Anything that happens in there, like most of it, you probably see anyways.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
it's
go ahead.
there is a lot of like personally identifiable information in their chat.
yeah,
Like
Yeah, that too.
there are people you could literally like look up their name and find out where they live if you just read through that.
yeah.
And I don't think we want that to be made public. It wasn't intended for that.
Make dev chat publics is rising. No. Again, it's a place for us to be private with one another.
Yeah.
The thing. So technically, like we could have a public core only room, like everybody could see, but only certain people could post. But then, like, how much is that going to be used? This is actually a recurring topic. Like years ago, we had the same topic where it's like, oh, there's too much stuff, there's too many rooms that are private or can't be seen. We opened up some of them. The discussion just moved to the rooms that were still private. And if we said, okay, now there are no private rooms on this Discord server, well, when we need to discuss private stuff, we're going to move to DMs, and maybe there's going to be a separate server for people to be private in. So I don't think that, like, there's always going to be people who desire privacy with certain topics.
Mhm.
And the private rooms are just where we have that in the server. Making those rooms public, I don't feel like actually resolves anything.
Mhm.
It doesn't really make anything more transparent. It just moves those discussions elsewhere.
And like I was saying, if the concern is that some things that are said should be said are important enough to be said to a larger audience, then yeah, we probably would do that. And 'cause like they were saying, these are kind of more private. These aren't like for discussing the future of Endless Sky per se. Like that's something we would talk about eventually, like overall too. So
Yeah,
like
anything that's worth discussing publicly, we do discuss publicly.
yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
charming us. Is that really a serious question? It seems important to have private chats.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'll believe it's a genuine question,
Yeah.
and I'll respond to it genuinely.
It's like having a corporation having everyone talk to each other all the time, but only in front of everybody else, and that kind of falls apart at some eventually. So
Yeah. Anything
To
else
get
to say on
technical,
that?
this isn't a question at all. It wasn't asked as a question.
it was a petition. So
I mean, we call it a Q&A, but we kind of respond to anything that's put in here.
yeah, within reason.
Yeah.
This one is not a question, absolutely. It's just it's a demand. It's more core automata factions and designs.
There's a secret third faction that's been hiding out, growing its numbers from without the prying eyes of anyone else.
So, we actually there's a lot of plugins that add more automata factions and designs, especially Zora's. So if you're looking for additional things like that, definitely take a look there. Yeah.
All right. Here's another one that's not really a question, but we'll talk about it anyway. Transparency and democratization, but they did it with a S instead of a Z, so we know we can't trust you already. As the community grows, managing it becomes hard. According to Winston Churchill, democracy is the least bad form of government, so let's reform the Endless Sky community into one. Establish hard criteria on promoting merchants to privateers in Endless Sky community, and on promoting privateers to core members. Post it in the Rules tab visibly to all. Establish a mechanism to demote/impeach cores, reviewers, and developers who are performing poorly. Post it on the Rules tab visibly to all. Periodically hold elections to choose who the head dev is. Candidates present their vision of future ES development. Why? Are we citing Winston Churchill alone here? Is that our rationale? Democracy is the least bad form of government. We're not a government, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dryo says that seems way too complex for me for no real benefit. Yeah. And then, yeah, Rise. So, Proudly Canadian asked before I even posted this, or before I was even talking about this, or maybe you did, when I started, who is core defined? Who is core defined anywhere? It's the role on Discord, the core member role, and then we vote people. We already vote people into that role, and then
And
among the devs, we basically vote in new devs. So. Doom says, despite the occasional resistance to it, this democracy has survived 10 times longer than any human democracy, or this meritocracy has survived 10 times longer than any human democracy. That looking like a quote. I don't know where that's from, though.
A description of Ring of Friendship in the Coalition space.
oh,
Let's go.
but
I trust the Coalition a lot more than I trust Winston Churchill.
Yo.
what do you mean by that?
Yeah, and
But,
Ziproot points out, Endless Sky is also open source, so everything has to go through GitHub at some point. That's another thing, too. Like, I feel like there are people who they'll say, like, hey, I'm concerned there's not enough transparency about this or that, but it's like, eventually everything comes to a public discussion anyway. It doesn't matter what point it becomes public, it will become a public discussion at some point.
I feel like this is trying to overcomplicate the system we have working, which is working, to resolve a couple of concerns in certain situations, which are entirely warranted. But it sounds like a huge change for what's relatively not a huge problem. Again, not trying to devalue any concerns anyone has, but for the most part, we work together pretty well, and we developed the game, and people are enjoying it. So I think what this is trying to say is we should rotate our organization every now and then. And I feel like that would get messy very quickly, because it would mean that suddenly every time we do that, what we're working with the game might change right away, or we might reform certain parts of the game into different ideals than like what the past group was, or something like that. It just seems unnecessarily complex for what we have that's already working. And again, not to say like there are parts that maybe could be improved, but
Yeah.
you know.
I also think that, like, in general, the importance of the head developer is kind of overestimated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't come with any PR powers, as far as I
It's
know.
basically an informal title.
There's a lot that happens that like points to Derpy being like the end all of everything, and it's like I don't know how
wish.
many times we said that's not true. Like for most of the dev discussions, like it's amongst all of us, and we also like talk to the core members, and we also talk to you guys during these events or streams, and we can maybe find more ways to do that. And it's never going to be the head developer is the one and all. So
Yeah. Rising says, I expect in a voting system, the same people will probably be voted again and again. See Wesnoth, for example, same person for some time. And Azure says Derpy is a tyrant. The duality of man. Sam is saying that there's confusion around the term core member, and we should just rename core to social club. Confusion will be gone, I think. I mean, we've actually renamed core member a few times in the past. It's been a while since we renamed it, but it has been renamed a number of times before. And I think it's like it's basically a euphemism treadmill situation. We can change the name to something else, but then that new name will take on all the connotation of what the old name had anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we call it the social club, what are people going to say now? Oh, what, you're telling me I'm just not in the club? Like I feel like people could find if they have an issue with the group, regardless of what its name is, they will find an issue with the name itself.
Mhm. Kanan says maybe more polls for big changes. So there have been updates where in the announcement, I remember Derpy would write polls, or we would have submission boxes for people to give feedback on changes and
Yeah.
or future changes, and we've done it before. I don't think it would be a good thing to implement overall, because eventually, with an audience as big as we have and people who play the game just to play the game, um, you start to kind of running into these cases where if, say, someone puts forward, oh, we should give every faction 10 more ships. That poll is going to be a resoundingly do it. And it's not because necessarily it's a good idea. It's going to be because, oh, that's cool. That just adds more stuff. That's good. A lot of stuff would end up like that through a poll. I feel it
Yeah.
would just be a real cool rather than kind of a take a look at things and
Yeah, Sam
do
says
things like
polls and
that.
surveys are challenged because they are easily biased as well. A poll with a slanted intention, for example. Yeah.
That's fair.
I think I talked about this before, how we did used to do a lot more polls in the past. But when we did those, I feel like it was also because we weren't as sure of our own direction of where we wanted to go with certain things. That's why we asked people, it's like, hey, we don't know what to do. What do you guys think we should do? But as the years have gone on and the existing developers have really kind of gotten into a groove with building up the game, and we've added new developers who, like, as a whole, I think the active group developers we have is a very solid group. We all work pretty well with each other, with few exceptions. So it's not really the case anymore that we feel like we need to open a poll where it's like, all right, we don't know. What do you guys think? Becca says, do you want this super cool feature I'm developing or I'm proposing, or this meh alternative that some guy over there said I've never met is trying to force upon us? Yeah.
Features feel some. Oh no.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Like, we don't have many cases where we have two solid options that we can't choose between, and we could easily go with either or, and we need a poll to break a tie on that type of thing.
Canadian says the poll should only be started by devs only. I mean, that's how they have it in the past. The problem with that is once you start saying the polls are done by the dev and then the devs take a look at it, then it turns into the bias of, oh, it doesn't matter what we do with the polls because the devs will just do whatever anyways.
Yeah.
And it just turns into this back and forth. Like the polls are either going to be really biased on one or they're going to be really biased on another end, or they're going to just, it's a very, it doesn't really benefit an overall situation. I feel like in certain examples, like getting feedback is good, and I feel like there are some cases where polls would work, but I don't think it would be something we should universally do for everything we may question. So some people think people now. Yeah, everyone's going to have an opinion on whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Should we fix this typo? Yes or no?
Well, Legendary says dev set idea, different people pitch their solutions, and dev set polls with people voting on the solution they want. This was kind of was talked about with past things. In one announcement, Derpy, we were kind of trying to figure out how we want to go about reverse fusters, and he put a couple of different solutions that we've had,
Mhm.
and we've had people voted on those rather than. Sorry. On top of that, we had a feedback box that said, "What would your solution be?" And we would take a look at all these together. The problem is when we do polls again, uh, the concern, like I was saying earlier, maybe that the devs put them out so the devs won't care, and at the same time, we can look at the responses and yeah,
Bob
see, I'm
knows
looking
what's
at
up.
that. If we don't choose to do the solution that everyone says, then all of a sudden it's why should there be a poll in the first place, or we're never going to look at things anyway. And when we do, we do look at what people suggest and what feedback we get. So it's kind of I feel like it's kind of a lose-lose situation. But Because if we end up just like that poll that was put in chat, if there's a decision against a poll that has a large amount of yeses to nos, and it's something we end up thinking we shouldn't do, it turns from we made a decision based on feedback and based on what we believe should be part of the game, what fits it. It turns into we disagree with a whole bunch of people's opinions and now we're horrible or something like that, and that doesn't help anybody. So polls would be a good idea to maybe gauge like a general interest or thought of things, but I don't think it's an effective way of gauging or resolving what should be a change in the game. Yeah, I was gonna have Derpy answer that.
Yeah, I was waiting for him to shut up. Azure says, one of my concerns
bit.
about having a larger dev team is that it might become more insular. Like how you have said, you feel less of a need to consult people outside of the devs when making decisions. I didn't really say that I have less of a need to consult people outside of the devs for decisions. There's a difference between talking to the devs. So talking to just the devs is on one side of the spectrum. The other side of the spectrum is do a poll to ask everyone what their thoughts are on something. There's an in-between there where we talk to people individually or as a group without pinging everyone and trying to get everyone's thoughts on something in the server. That I think we still do. We still talk to people outside of the dev circles to get their ideas on things. We will talk about things within the dev group, but then we will also say like, hey, here's what we're talking about. What are your thoughts? And then again, as ZipRoot said earlier, it's open. The game's open source. Everything has to go through GitHub. So even if we do make a decision, we still have to open a pull request, and that pull request acts as a area for discussion to occur from anyone, and we have to respond to stuff that happens there. People can pitch alternatives there as well. So I wouldn't really describe the situation we have now as devs are being super insular and only making decisions among themselves and never consulting anyone else and just pushing stuff through. Or even anything super close to that. Azure says there are a lot of decisions that aren't necessarily pull requests, though, like regarding game direction and things like high reveal. But I mean, again, it's not like we're saying this is what's happening. You can never talk to us about it. I opened a discussion post for a reason when I made that new wiki page.
Yeah, and it's also not to say it'll never that's it. You should deal with it, and it'll never change too. I mean, there might be some things that we universally agree on, and there might be some things that we might change too. So like a good example of that is the recent missiles PR. So back in the day, people thought that missiles could change and have different mechanics and be a bit more, I wouldn't say realistic, but and that was kind of received in a decent light back then, and missiles were changed. And then over time, there was a lot of feedback saying missiles are useless now, missiles are hard to use, and we kind of took a look at that again, and we came to the conclusion that we should probably revert it and look at other ways to maybe make them a little bit more useful or things like that. So in terms of like content, at least, we do have back and forths, even if there's a pre-established opinion or direction on what should be done, and it can always receive enough feedback, or we can look at it and kind of like be like, okay, maybe we want to change it again or something like that. As for like more strictly organizational things, I think that's what Derpy was kind of saying, where we do talk about it with everybody, and it's not that we drop something or like, okay, you have to adhere to that period or goodbye or something like that. So it's still something we will talk about and we're open to discussion with. It's just a matter of whether or not there are agreements on it, there are disagreements on it, or if there's an ability to have a common ground, or if it's something that they're like we should just move on from. So, and it's kind of hard to pick out specific examples of that too. So
Proudly Canadian asks, do we need a more centralized area for discussions? Discord doesn't work, and not everyone goes to GitHub. Well, I forget who said it, but somebody else said earlier that this is a problem with any platform. Not everyone's going to go to the location. So if we chose some third place to go post to, not everyone's going to go there. I think we just need to accept the fact that the game's development happens on GitHub. That's where the game's source code is hosted. That's where all the development occurs. Discord is where more community-oriented things happen, where people who aren't necessarily developing the game or interested in the game's development itself, but are interested in updates for the game can talk. So we just kind of need to juggle these two forms of communication that we have, and I don't think that trying to find one centralized location or saying everything must happen here, like, I don't think that would work out in the end.
it's one of those. We shouldn't try and spread ourselves evenly thin across everywhere to accommodate everything. We should try and focus on where the majority is and where the core of everything is.
All right. Want to move on then?
Yeah.
All right. Any hope on creating an Endless Sky community-wide species? A series of polls deciding on what the species looks like, how they act, their history, and their strengths and weaknesses. That would be a way to do a poll.
That'd be interesting.
We could do like, who's it, Shonix poll TF2 maps.
Only thing with that is it would have to be within reason. Like, we wouldn't make a goofy, intentionally not
No,
appropriate the rest
I'd
of the
be willing
galaxy.
to make a goofy
Really?
species. Yeah, I mean, sure, you still have to tie it into the game story somehow.
Well, that's what I
but,
mean.
like,
That's what I mean. Is like, don't make like
It
the
could still be goofy
McDonald
in and of
fried
itself.
species that I don't know.
Maybe you have to go through a wormhole that leads to an alternative universe, and then it's some like completely messed up goofy faction.
Cosmic horror aliens like Cthulhu. I mean, we already have that. It's called the Ruler.
Sure asks, is this where the Avgi will be relegated to? The Bizarro universe. Rick and Morty faction, says Rising. Jarl says a bunch of stoner squirrels? Question mark. I don't know. That seems a bit too out there. I don't know if we can add that to the game.
I will say at this point, a lot of the aliens that we have, they're not just they are already the work of a lot of multiple people. It's not just like one person, like the Benrodia, which were brought up earlier. Yes, Derpy did a lot of the work. Also, Becca and Soria both did a lot of work on that as well. So yeah, in a sense, they're all sort of community authored.
Yeah.
And also, if we develop this new species via polls, then what story would they have? Who would be writing that? Like, we would just be adding another species without a serious amount of content, which we just talked about like 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I mean, something interesting for sure. Not out of the question.
But it would be difficult to do.
Yeah.
All right. Skipping over this one because we already looked at it earlier, the what's new in the next update. When will we get more aliens? Well, there's already some pull quest open for more aliens. The answer to that then would be whenever we get to those. Sure says I'm going to close it. Sure, is that you? Ask Zipper.
I feel like this is a question we're always going to get, though, even if we do add more aliens to the game. Like, say we add like 2 more species to the game that's already open. In about a month from that, people will be like, when are there going to be more? This is cool. And it's like, at some point, we kind of have to be like, okay, we need to work on what's in the game.
Yeah. Sam says, I like pirates. High plus pirates.
That's just you, huh? Yeah.
All right. Will there be a solution to the one-sidedness of the Remnant campaign?
what is meant by one-sidedness of it.
The same solution that we'll have to the one-sidedness of the Free Worlds campaign. Make another campaign on the other side. That's just one of those things where if maybe maybe it's not disingenuous. I don't know. Would you say the Free Worlds campaign is one-sided? I mean, you're part of the Free Worlds, so I feel like in any way, I feel like you could describe the Remnant campaign as one-sided. The Free Worlds campaign is the same way, and that's just a function of we are writing a storyline for a particular faction, of you joining that faction and helping them out. So it's inherently going to show them in a good light and be on their side. If you want an alternative to a one-sided storyline, that alternative should be to write another storyline from the other perspective or a different perspective or what have you. Yeah, Zipper says every Campfire chat eventually comes back to the Navy campaign. I mean, there's even a question further down. I'll just skip it now, or I guess I got to it now. Navy campaign question mark? So, like, that's all it asks. So every time.
I said this last one. Every time that question is asked, that's another month away from it.
Yeah. Numi asks, do you still maintain contact with Michael Zonizer? We have his email, but he does not respond, unfortunately. So.
Responds once in a blue moon.
Yeah. He's out living his best life. You know how it is. Okay, this is an odd question. Give me light mode for the game. What? Like light mode UI or like light mode space backgrounds? Yeah, light mode in spaces, sure.
Just turn up your screen brightness really high, and then you've got light mode on everything.
Yeah.
Hector question. He probably asked it. He's got a Discord profile and light theme. He uses Discord and light theme.
I mean, you could actually go into the game files and change all of the colors to be lighter in the interface file and change the UI images to be whites instead of grays.
Could you invert the star field?
That I don't think you can. You would have to do some engine changes for that, probably.
Probably. In the code? Well, yeah.
Yeah. My guy wants to be flashbanged, says Charming. Yeah. All right, Azure says, something else I think might be an interesting organizational change. Currently, we have a lot of projects that have been sat around for years, largely because they're purely run internally, quote unquote, by people who happen to have an interest in the time. Republic/Syndicate campaigns, Wanderer Part 3, etc. I know there are servers oriented around developing those, and they have teams for them, but all of them are basically dead at this point. I'd be interested in perhaps creating focus committees run here with a bit more organization, such as giving bi-weekly or just weekly progress reports, milestones, things like having a general outline, etc., with groups of active members/devs that are interested in writing them. I know Doom has expressed interest in the Wanderers. Mike and Gray have come up with Republic outline, and we could probably get a lot more done by actively hosting progress here and getting better guiding direction to make sure it doesn't just die out after a couple weeks. Yeah, I could definitely see something like that being a bit more beneficial to do. I don't know how much we would want to have running in parallel, though.
Yeah, so a lot of, I feel like the activity dying down isn't necessarily because it's in separate locations like that. It's because I think it comes down more to individuals and like kind of like what Derpy is saying is like too much is happening at once. So if we try and say like we make 3 channels for all 3 of these things or something like that in the Discord, which I don't think would maybe be a bad thing, but if we try and like run everything all at once, then it's still going to be kind of the whole attention maybe grabbed here and there and kind of interrupt the process or things like that. So who knows? Maybe it'd be a good idea to kind of just throw things out there like that. I don't know. But I don't think like this is entirely solving a problem with inactivity. I think the inactivity has a lot more reasons beyond just this. But I feel like it could be something considered.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, I just saw a new question pop up.
I see that. Yeah. Oh, it's a link.
But until we get then,
no.
Could we have an area of dead space, in parentheses, not that kind, between the civilizations with the space fauna instead of one spot where no one goes but once? problem with that is honestly that it's actually at odds with the lore of the game. Part of the overall overarching story of the game at the moment is that the galaxy is kind of like running out, in air quotes, of habitable space for new alien factions to inhabit. The Archons, the Drac and the Pug, have some sort of back and forth where they shape the lanes between systems, and most of the systems that are connected to one another are inhabitable or are habitable. But there's, of course, a lot more stars in the galaxy than just what can be visited. But you would expect that the reason we can't visit those is because there's nothing of value there for a vast civilization. There's nothing even possible to terraform, perhaps. Hence why those aren't connected by the lanes. So to start adding a bunch of regions of uninhabited space where you're saying there's space fauna, which implies that it's habitable, that would kind of go against that idea of there's not enough space for the number of factions that are popping up. Any other thoughts on that?
We do have a couple of regions with space fauna, and I think essentially habitable for space fauna doesn't necessarily need to overlap with habitable for planet-based civilizations.
True. Jarl says change the lore. The problem is you're digging up some deep stuff. That's been there for a hot minute. There's been a lot built on top of it.
We've got the I don't actually know how you pronounce this. The Vermeid.
Yeah. What?
Vermeid.
Either one.
Vermeid.
Except
We've got those, and the area they're in doesn't seem very habitable. Lots of really big stars. So
I do want to add that I think this is kind of more targeting for the VMade and the VA, which are the new stuff that I've made. It's not that you go there once. I do plan there being like reasons to return to these areas. It's just that I have to get to it. The Remnant obviously have reasons to return there, and they have the space life. But if I feel like this question's half coming from the idea that, oh, this is cool space life, but you'll only go over there once and never return to that area again because there's nothing there. There will be stuff there someday.
or are they asking about the other space life area that you only go once for one specific mission and then never again?
Which one are you talking about? Oh, never mind.
You know, that one.
Yeah.
That one, yeah.
But no, so that's kind of what that is. Yeah. Can you hunt the space, Elchi? You could do that right now.
All right. Next question. Can I have an issue template for proposals? Who are you proposing to?
Yeah, who are you?
Is that not what feature request is?
Yeah, issues are proposals.
Yeah.
Unless it's like a bug report, but like a lot of those is, hey, I'm proposing a new feature. I'm proposing a new mechanic. I'm proposing new content. That's what issues are.
It's a little odd this worded can I have. It's like, we don't know who you are.
Yeah.
Template does not require inserting a problem.
You could just write NA. Or, I mean, maybe just don't even say there's a problem.
Requests. Feature requests aren't necessarily problems.
Yeah, I know the way it's worded is like, hey, what problem are you trying to fix here? But
yeah,
it's still a feature request. Like I feel like that doesn't necessarily need to be filled in. Or
yeah,
really, honestly, when I use that, when I post an issue, I don't even look at that as a description of a problem. I look at that more as like, hey, here's the current situation, and then desired solutions more like here's how it could be better.
Okay.
Less so than, oh, there is a problem. Here's how I want to fix it.
Leaf actually made light mode in this guy, and I'm blind.
now we just have a bunch of questions about. I'm going to do 3 of these in a row. They're kind of jumbled around, but the first one is Wander campaign development speed. I'm sure this gets asked at Campfire, but is there a coherent plan right now? There seems to be several different groups that were working on it at one point, but they all seemingly died off. I mean, that's kind of what we discussed. Like, yeah, there's not much going on there, but we did get a few pull requests recently around adding some stuff to Wanderer missions here and there, and I would like to actually get something finished for that at some point soon,
Mm-hmm.
or at least something rolling.
Yeah,
So-
Wanderers 3 in that area is kind of on the
Yeah, but then the
low
other
to
two,
low.
the other 2 questions, Navy campaign. I mean, we kind of covered that. And then any updates on High Reveal. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. Like, all 3 of these, it's like things have stalled out. We're hoping to make to do some movement to try and get at least something off the ground. Because I mean, I feel like once we get one of these things complete, it's like, all right, cool, we were able to actually do something here.
Yeah.
Proudly Canadian says you need volunteers. That's what everyone is. That's what this whole thing is volunteers. All right. And then this one is from Proudly Canadian / Dillinger. Is this worth mentioning during the section on the Vision doc? And he links to a comment on GitHub,
His own discussion.
which is also a different question. He just links to his own question instead of just posting the question. Why do we not have a need help label for issues and pull requests? One issue that came up during the review of the Vision doc was that it could become more difficult for contributors to complete new content if they were missing one of the many necessary skills to create new content. As an example, if I wanted to add some storyline that required some new images, I wouldn't want to tackle it because my Blender and or GIMP skills aren't where they need to be considered acceptable. If I had a need help label, I could start working on what I can do, and someone else could volunteer to do the other parts that they have the needed skills in. I know we already have many members that collaborate together, but for new potential contributors, it's difficult to know who to reach out to for help. I think that that's more of a Discord concern than a GitHub concern. Like, a need help label for issues and pull requests, I don't think people should be posting incomplete pull requests or issues saying, hey, somebody help me with this. That is much more the realm of Discord to be like, hey, I'm working on this. This is what I have. Is somebody able to help me with this?
Yeah, and even at that point, like if you do open something, like say it's like a draft on GitHub, you can still like ask there, like, oh, I might not be complete with this part of this thing, so like I might be working on content and I don't have the images for this, and you might be say, I need to look around for a way to do that or learn how to do that. We do have like plenty of people on GitHub who might go in and say, oh, hey, so and so works on this or things like that, and they might be able to help you out or know someone else who can help you out. So I don't. It's again, it's like a case by case thing. So I don't think we need a explicit label for it, but generally things on GitHub should be within the realm of like, I don't want to say complete, but at least have a general gist of every part of it. Like you shouldn't PR something that says, "Oh, this is gonna add more missions," but for the sake of an example again, it also adds a couple more ships, but all I have is the missions. So at that point, you would probably want to PR it once you have both, even if they're not like perfect. Like you could have just a couple of like random sprites that maybe you just kind of whipped up after a few seconds or something, and someone else can kind of come in and be like, "Oh, okay, well if you want to kind of tweak this a bit to make it look a bit neater or more, so and so." But and then they're asking chat,
How?
who do you get to that point?
How do you get to that point? Is I'm guessing that. Yeah, edited. All right.
The point of asking people or the point of having general like basic assets?
Rising says you show your commitment. Azure says slide into their DMs.
Assets, including both, has the risk of sinking to PR, so by splitting you increase the chance of maturity and success of the feature.
Depends on the size, Sam.
It also depends on what exactly you're making. Like, for example, is this a mission and you're thinking it should have a scene? Because missions don't necessarily need a scene.
Oh yeah, he
And
says that is don't mix content and mechanics. Absolutely that.
yes,
Don't
yes.
mix code changes with content changes, or at least not massive content changes with code changes.
Hmm.
Yeah, Leaf really doesn't like it when you do that.
Yeah. But
But
if it's like if it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
mission, you don't need a scene, and then later on you can open a PR that adds a scene. That's not like that's not conflicting mechanics. That's just addition. But
Yeah, yeah.
if
We're
it's a
thinking more so
mission,
different types of content,
yeah.
like
If a mission needs
assets
code to do
and
something,
data.
then you would need to sit down and kind of learn or ask around for help to do that code. You wouldn't
It's
want
just
to PR
truly the
that.
community here is hostile and unwelcoming.
Not really thinking code. Okay, let's see. That's kind of a big difference between images and code.
All right. Well, this next question. I found this
Go on.
video talking about some of the difficulties of community development. I think some of the points raised were applicable to Endless Sky. I have it on good authority that this is a Rick Roll link.
You
So,
should have said that. I would have said, "Hey, can you guys look at this for us?" Put it in Campfire chat.
yeah, let me just post it.
Yeah, people weren't listening or paying attention.
Yeah. Roll that back. You didn't hear me say that. Yo, here's the video. Cute little puppies doing cute things. Thank you.
Oh, that's so cute. You guys should see this. You, audience in the back who hasn't been paying attention, go watch that cute puppy video.
Newbie says it's a Rick Roll. I warned you.
Found out who wasn't listening.
I was warned, and I warned you. All right, final question that has been submitted. Let me pull this up. It's thoughts on a specific pull request. It'd be cooler if you would link them.
No, I'd just be able to call.
Thoughts on balancing the Remnant Interceptor and Bellows Afterburner. Honestly, I've said for a while I think a lot of the Remnant stuff could use a nerf. So, just don't blame me for PR advertising. I didn't submit this.
I think the general reception to this has been they could be nerfed because right now the numbers in comparison to other numbers in the game are a lot higher and a lot further apart. But if it does get nerfed, it wouldn't be nerfing it out of its benefits. So pretend an afterburner has a thrust of 10, and then pretend something in here has a thrust of 50, and then everything else in the game is like around 8, 6, 9, 10. So we would nerf that 50 down to like a 30 or maybe like a 20, but it would still be the best, or it still would have that that efficiency over the rest of everything. It's just that there's a noticeable gap. So yeah, if for the specific PR, I feel like and Derpy's saying that we'd probably nerf things in general. It's because that the values are so much higher than others in the game, but we wouldn't be nerfing it to the point where it would change its place amongst other content in the game. Like noticeably, yeah. So I guess thoughts on that specific PR. I mean, Derpy said you think it'd be nerf it. I think it could be adjusted. I feel like Doom probably has a comment on this too. As
He approved it.
Yeah.
So.
I feel like it's something we'd probably look at sooner than later. Most of the discussion on it's kind of wrapped up at this point.
That is all the submitted questions. So now we will spend the last half hour-ish just chatting.
We lost you. You said that's all the questions. What?
Sounds like a skill issue.
For everyone.
It's time for people to post questions in chat instead of the submission box.
Questions in chat and or Star Wars things, I suppose.
Yeah, Star Wars things. Yeah, I was saying at the start, I finished Bad Batch. Bad Batch finished up this week. It was very nice.
I finished Rogue One. That one was pretty good.
Ziproot asks, World Ship name merge. I believe that Warp was looking at that, and he had some questions for the pull requests. I don't know where that's at the moment.
I know with that one, it looks pretty good. I think it's pretty good too. There's only one question Warp had on it, and it's one of the names was done differently than how the others were, but otherwise most of the names are good.
Arlas, what's the most likely next big content to be added to the game? Off the top of my head, honestly, not sure. Sure asks or says Wander campaign win, and then says Avgi, of course.
Sam says factions resembling too closely can take away with the game personality. I get that. So I think it's that when the numbers are too crazily far apart. So think of it, I guess, more exponentially. If everything in the game is based around a 10 and something's a 30, and then something's also a 90, I don't think that 90 is warranted in being different and having personality. I think that should be brought down to the 30. That's kind of what the situation is here.
Rising asks, how will you proceed on the vision doc, if I may ask? I think that my comment that I posted kind of sums up my thoughts. So we were working on that for a few weeks, and by the end of it, and like basically just before I posted it, I was like, oh, this might not exactly be what people were expecting. It's really just a bunch of style goals. So if you want to talk about, I mean, even Gray was like, yo, there's no actual vision or direction here. If you want a 1-sentence or maybe 2-sentence vision or direction from me, as far as I'm concerned, the way that we should be building the game is we set up our style goals. This is how we want the game to look and feel. Then the vision is just people follow the style goals and provide their own content that fits to them, or we review things to fit to the style goals and add them to the game. It's just that whole loop of people make things, people open pull requests, those pull requests get reviewed according to the style goals, then they get added to the game, so on and so forth. I don't really think that, like, that's my vision, that's my direction for things. I don't really know what else we would say beyond that. We don't have anything where it's like, all right, this is how the story is going to end, and this is how exactly this is going to happen. Because I feel like that would take away from the creativity of the people adding to the game. Maybe you could argue, like, oh, some of these style goals take away with creativity. But then we would say, well, at that point, you're just trying to make a different game. We're describing what Endless Sky is and what it wants to be in essence. We're letting you guys fill in the gaps beyond that.
I do want to take a look. Those asking at Leaf's responses, because I feel like his reply to the doc has been pretty constructive.
Yeah, I think there's definitely more we can add though too. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I even said like, hey, this is a first draft type thing. I'm open to questions and thoughts and concerns.
So if I had a comment on it, I understand that it did end up turning into more into style guides so much than it would be an explicit vision. I suppose eventually we could do maybe like kind of a shorter statement on each part of the vision and explain why. But I think in large that the vision, like the vision statements, would be to support this document here. So it's not that it would be its own brand new, entirely separate, huge document about how we choose to do everything. It would explain our choices and why we believe it fits in the game and what it provides for the game. But I guess my biggest comment here is that I don't think what we've made is useless, to put it kind of bluntly. It's kind of where our thoughts have been on everything lately because of all the questions that have been brought up. And even if it doesn't explicitly give vision outlines, it does kind of overall show the inner workings of what we build the game on. So we build off of that then, and then we kind of explain the vision and stuff like that. So it did take a long time to kind of, feeling especially turn some discussion areas. I feel like that's kind of unavoidable. because at some point you kind of have to draw a line and say, this is how we feel this part of the game's direction is going. This is how we feel this fits here. And anything that comes of that is, and when I said this a lot, is just disagreement between ideals. And we can always work through them, or we can move on and work on some other things. And it's just that at that point, when there's a disagreement, there's not much further that can be done. And it's not in bad faith either. And that's not to say that maybe some things we could like shift or change in some way that might benefit others, or it's just I feel like for this document and its kind of reception, it needs to be taken in kind of what it is light rather than what it should be, because what it is still important to us, and it did take us a lot to kind of put together. Plus the development resources, could.
Just as part of the issue with disagreements between ideals is that many people feel like that only ever resolves in one direction. Whether or not that's a problem is a different question, but it is something I hear often from people. I mean, isn't that the point of a core development team, to be the final say on those things? Like, if that's what you're getting at, in terms of anything's only ever going in one direction?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's kind of one of those, if people feel those are only ever resolved in one direction, for what I've seen, most of the suggestions in that is to just do the other direction. It's not really, oh, I understand where you're coming from, or maybe we can change it slightly. It's usually, okay, we shouldn't do it in that one direction. We should just do it in my direction, or this other direction. So I haven't really seen any like constructive examples of resolving that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the other thing too is, I think we kind of talked about this is with the new devs a little bit. Something to the effect of, there's a lot of people who say they have issues with the direction of things or with the group of developers that we have, but that lot of people isn't even in agreement with each other. They're all in agreement that they don't like us for whatever reason, or maybe that's being disingenuous. They're all in agreement that they don't like the direction of things, but they can't agree on what direction they want things to go instead. So if we chose one person's direction instead of our own, that the rest of the people would just be mad.
Yeah. So having a core development and core direction is kind of what we want to build upon, and then try and work from there.
Azure says, purely for tribalism reasons, I suspect they'd be happy just to see things not go the devs' way. And ironically, I get that feeling from some people.
Yeah, and like I was saying earlier, it's not that.
And at that point, what are you even doing here?
Like I was saying earlier, not everything goes every dev's way either.
Yeah,
I feel like that's kind of like a poor way of putting it, but we do disagree with each other. We do have different visions of each other. We do like kind of like point in somewhat different directions, but we're still at the end of the day able to sit down and kind of come to a consensus. And I will say, yeah, like we can kind of talk more with the community about that too. But it's not that we're sitting here and say, oh, that's absolutely wrong and we should do something else entirely, or that's like, you know, kind of like negative connotations. It's always constructive, and it's we're all on the same page kind of thing, even if we have different thoughts. And my concern is when that kind of comes into these negative responses of our page is wrong and we should do an entire one, like entirely different one. And I'm not trying to value any concerns people have, but it's kind of one of those. Most of the responses I've seen in that kind of light is more so do it differently rather than I understand the difference, and that kind of gets muddy there in itself. And I think another important thing that I say every time this happens is, for me at least, there's no wrong idea. There are different ideas, and sometimes different ideas don't work well with other different ideas. So that's why we kind of say sometimes things are better with plugins, sometimes things are better with a different repo or things like that. And that's not us saying, oh, that take is bad, get it out of here. It's saying it doesn't fit with what other things have been established for the game, and we probably shouldn't be changing those parts of the game to fit other ideals. And then Azure says, I think maintaining a degree of consistency so that it feels we're still playing the same game still allows people to have enough creative freedom to work together. Yeah, exactly. That's why a part of that document was consistency is really important for us, but at the same time, it's not that there's no creative freedom in that consistency. And I feel like there's a large perception that that is 100% the truth and you can't see it otherwise. And that's just not true.
Darcy asked me, let me find the exact comment, actually. We were chatting back and forth. I'm sorry, Darcy, if you don't want me to share this, but I think it's actually really pertinent to this situation here. Yeah, I mean, he was just asking me a question I answered, but if anybody else had asked me this question, I would have answered it openly. So I'm trying to find it. He asked me something about, like, what do you see the vision document doing? Or I think it was something to the effect of, like, do you see the vision as being a hard line and no one can go against it? Where the hell is the comment? I've located my response. I said, I'd argue that the vision isn't particularly strict. Sure, we'll strictly enforce the boundaries of it, but the vision itself leaves lots of room. I think that the issue arises when people try to make changes that we feel, change what it means for Endless Sky to be what it is, which the document is intended to outline. So point being, like, sure, we have boundaries here, but they're very broad. There's a lot of stuff to do with inside this paradigm, as we were saying. That doesn't mean, though, that we don't have boundaries. All right. Any other questions on anything else? More on this topic, or do we want to wrap it up here? There was some chats, some voices from the new devs here, but it's still mainly me and Sog talking. Do you guys have anything you want to talk about at length?
Yeah, any thoughts on the current situation? Or any things we discussed? Or
Hold on, Solaris asked this 3 times, so I'm going to actually respond to it now. Are you planning to add more events, like the Free Worlds event, where at a certain time, regardless of what the player is currently doing or has done, something happens in the galaxy that adds or changes things? I mean, anyone could add those. I don't know if there's any particular plans for stuff like that, but those are typically good things to do at the start of storylines. And I mean, the first big storyline in the game is the main campaign, the main human campaign, so it makes sense to have some event kick that off. But I mean, that's in essence how High Reveal starts as well. Maybe you could argue that it's not a massive change or anything to the galaxy, but there is an event that occurs that changes things, that leads you to the story.
mm-hmm. There's kind of a thought in the opposite direction where people don't want the game to change without the interaction, because sometimes they want to be working on other things at the time. They want to be trading. They kind of just like doing missions, just kind of chilling out, and then when they feel ready, join the story. That's kind of something we've been keeping. We don't want the Free World's entire campaign to happen without the player doing something.
Proudly the Canadian asks, I feel like a lot of disagreement comes from people spending a lot of time on something only to have people not like it. Should we have more? Should we make more use of discussions before starting pull quests? I mean, potentially, but there's always going to be pull quests that people open and spend a lot of time on, and then ultimately, for one reason or another, they get declined. We're never going to get a 100% merge rate. And
I think this.
Why would we? Like, I don't think a 100% merge rate is a goal. A goal is to have a good game. Sometimes having a good game means rejecting ideas, regardless of how long somebody's worked on them.
Yeah, and that's not to say that again the ideas are bad or that we're not accepting them because we don't like them or something like that. It's one of the quotes in the document is a game for everyone is a game for no one, and it's just
Thank
one of
you,
those
Arrowhead.
where we don't want to try and do absolutely everything, and it would be kind of impossible to add everything to the game or try and work with everything that's been suggested and things like that. Someone was trying to talk. I'm sorry. Whoever that was, go ahead.
It was Peter. He unmuted for a moment, but then he remuted. What?
We still can't hear you.
I hear like a mic activation sound effect, but
Yeah, I hear you
nothing's
unmuted,
coming
but
through.
we don't hear an actual mic. Maybe Discord's not picking it up.
He's just being shy.
Probably go into your settings and see if it's
All
grabbing the
right.
right mic.
Dane asks, you mentioned things were starting to move for the Wanderer campaign. Is there a plan or a team in place to spearhead that? Not, I wouldn't say exactly right now.
We're talking about that. That was one of the questions.
Yeah, it's more so that like Doom opened something, and then I think somebody else opened something around the Wanderer stuff. And we've talked about finally getting that off the ground. At the moment, there's nothing super concrete I can point to, though. Sam looks to be asking for timelines on the Unfettered stuff. Nothing at the moment. That's still, unfortunately, out of distance. I mean, definitely not this update, that's for sure. Not enough time left. But we'll see. I know that there's been some movement on it, though. I think Roadrunner started looking at it, right? So I would ask her. I know that, actually, yeah, we talked about recently, Roadrunner was asking me about, Hurl was something about Hurl saying that, I mean, you're here. Were you thinking about splitting the pull request up? High Legacy first, maybe? I mean, we could. Tybe's looking at it too. All right. So we have enough numbers now that you can get different answers depending on the devs you talk to. Like, oh, is this being worked on? I'm over here like, yeah, I don't know. And then it's like, oh wait, yeah, we have 2 people working on it now.
Probably Canadian asks, what would the devs like to see finished next?
I mean, like I just said, we have a lot of people now. I would like to see the next update finished next. There's a lot of stuff that I've put down on the 0.10.7 milestone. If you want to talk about what to do next, I want to get through a good chunk of this. A lot of it's not going to happen at this point. We have less than a month away, and there's still 53 open things on the milestone. So it's a good chunk of this is going to have to wait until later. But I would like to get through, let's say, at least half of these things. So if you go to GitHub, go to the milestones, go to 0.9 or 0.10.7, see the 53 things that are open there. I want to get at least half of those done. I should maybe start moving some of these to 0.10.9. Zer asks, thoughts on the different core system rework pull requests. I'm not completely set on mine, but I do have many concerns about grays. Well, more like a few strong ones that we've discussed and have been unable to come to a consensus on. My position on any of the system rework pull requests right now is I kind of want to take them all as a whole. I want to have enough time to be like, right, here's the changes that people are trying to make in each of the areas of the game, each of the areas of the galaxy. What are the goals exactly for each region? Do these pull requests actually effectively resolve these goals or address these goals? And I feel like I don't want to piecemeal them and be like, oh, what are your thoughts on just the core pull requests? Core system pull requests. It's like, well, Near Earth is right next to there, and you have one open for that as well. And then we have the Dirt Belt one. I feel like we need to take them as a whole. That doesn't mean make them all one pull request, but that does mean if we're looking at one of them, I would like to look at all of them at the same time. It makes sense to pull request them separately. I just want to look at them combined. Consider them as a combined whole. Sam says, I will attempt to address my 2 open pull requests fully this week. Peter mentioned he will be away this coming week, so it might make sense for another dev to look at the music pull request after it updates. Didn't I milestone that one? I did. I would like to actually get that finalized. So I'll try picking that up when whenever Peter's out. You'll look at the thrust pull request since it's smaller. Yeah, that one I feel like we should have had done a while ago. But yeah, please get that one finished because that's like an easy merge as soon as you wrap up that last comment. Any other questions? Things are going by fast now, I feel.
I was gonna say this isn't necessarily for vanilla, and it's kind of more in theme of today's date. So I on my own time on the side, I work on a little plugin for Star Wars content, and so something I like to see merge sooner than later is the ability to limit turret arcs.
Yeah, that's one I milestoned as well for this update.
Yeah, so there's a little teaser of that, but
we don't talk about easy access.
I'm not trying to say like, oh, go look at my plugin, but yeah, no, I do want to. I think that'd be cool to see is limiting turret for like Gagno ships too. Having blind spots for some ships that would apply to. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that's a cool feature. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yo, we hear you now.
Yo, we hear you now.
Yeah, I finally found a working microphone. Somebody accused me of being shy, but that was not the case. It was a technology thing.
Yeah.
Web says on my own time as opposed to the time you're being paid to work on Endless Sky. Yeah, as opposed to that.
True. No, vanilla always comes first for me. Don't worry. I do want to start maybe doing a few more streams and kind of just take a look at some of the content PRs and things like that.
Anything else? Because if not, I think we can wrap this up here. Azure asked Mass rebalance when? I wanted to get that this update, but then so much happened. And I've been a lot busier than I would have liked.
I don't know. I think it's still possible.
Maybe. If we really move to it.
I do. Maybe I'll finish my playthrough on stream. And so far, I feel like it's been a good change overall. I haven't had to see any issues with it. The only like comment I have is, "Holy crap! Combat drones are fast now." Maybe that's good.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it. I have not play tested it myself yet. I should probably get to that. I think I actually have a lot of free time tomorrow, so I might. I thought I wasn't gonna have a lot of free time tomorrow, but then I realized, oh wait, something I needed to do tomorrow, I can actually do today. So
I think
live
it's
playthroughs.
I think it's a good thing to maybe wrap up this update with.
One question from me. I have been working on formation flying again. Do you think that could be in the next release?
I did see the small one you opened. I would actually like to get some of this type of stuff done because this has been a long time in the works, and it really feels like I mean, there's a lot of stuff that has been in the works for a long time that we'd like to actually get done. I don't know if
God.
I was just gonna say I don't know if this exact release, but sooner than later, for sure.
Okay.
Azure says, honestly, Endless Sky's always been really great with stability. I wouldn't mind sacrificing a bit of that to a degree for beta releases. Yeah, that's a topic that has come up.
On the Vision Dock.
This idea of we hold the game to a high degree of polish, and that does slow things down in terms of development because things remain in review for a lot longer. But maybe we should throw caution to the wind a bit more often.
I don't know. Maybe I will merge the balance PR at the end of my playthrough.
Well, by the way, I wouldn't want to sacrifice stability for formations. It just needs to be stable if we
Mhm.
put it in. I think we should keep ourselves to this high standard. I think that's one of the strengths because if you give people a broken game,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
lose a lot of the people playing it quite quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I think the idea has been more so for content though, less so for engine stability.
Yeah.
I think of course engine stability we should keep the engine tip top, but as far as content, people have been a bit more open to having content merge that might have a few rough edges here or there, but on the whole is fine, and then having those rough edges buffed out at a later date.
Yeah. So I see the argument where maybe we put some content into the game that maybe we could take a look at again a little bit later, but I wouldn't say something as massive like high reveal. But if we're talking about like code and mechanics, then yeah, that definitely should be like there shouldn't be any like things that still need to be looked at after it's merged. It should probably be functioning correctly and have as few bugs as possible.
I mean, the other thing too that has been somewhat discussed in the past is the idea of a completely separate like testing branch, like a beta branch that we could just throw stuff on and have people test that. You could use the launcher to pull it down, potentially, and then get a bit more. I mean, Ziproot asks Delta. I mean, kind of like Delta, but with some actual oversight.
Yeah, we wouldn't probably delegate to Delta just because that was made separately from the organization, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and Warp says the stated goals and the actual use of the Delta branch don't appear to align. Yeah, the it was billed as a way like a test bed location, which is kind of what we just talked about, but it's more so like how do we make the game different?
Yeah. But no, I do think it'd be good to kind of like there's a balance between have everything held to an extreme polish and then also have a place to play with the stuff that still needs to be polished. So
KK says finding bugs would be easier for you guys if there was a beta branch. I mean, we have the unstable updates, and those only go out to the beta branch on Steam and GOG. So those are in essence beta branches, beta updates. But I think the idea is more so like if we call them betas, we should treat them as betas and not try and spend 101 hours reviewing every pull request individually.
mm-hmm.
And then Tybe says, well, we also get bug reports from Continuous. So like we could merge something early on in a release cycle, and that gives it months for people who are using Continuous who should have the expectation that things could be broken to actually pay test it.
Yeah.
Azure says, yeah, that's what I was thinking with formations. Yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe that's what we do. Maybe as soon as 0.10.8 is out the door, if formations are kind of good enough on a first viewing of them, be like, all right, throw those in, just see how they play out type of thing.
Yeah.
Or anything else, really.
I think that might be something to consider.
I mean,
It's like maybe we're a bit less, we're more lenient on it like earlier in the patch, but if we're coming close to an end, it probably should be.
yeah, granted,
solid.
the operative concern there is we would be following up on those things and actually finalizing them if there is anything to be finalized.
Yeah.
Because that was actually the idea of high reveal. Add it at the start of a release cycle, work on it over the course of the release cycle, and then by the end it would hopefully be good. I mean, that didn't pan out, in part because it was just so big.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, there's a lot to go through. So.
yeah. And Hector says as well, we just have to normalize potentially reverting things if bugs with something are found in continuous and them then not fixed by the end of the release. Yes.
Yeah.
That's another thing that has come up over the years as well, like this stigma against reverting changes that we kind of have. Anything else? Because if not, I would like to wrap this up within the next 10 minutes here. Any plans for a new project channel anytime soon? Depends on the project. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm still sitting here. I still want to get a beat on the Korg stuff and the pirate stuff. Right now, the pirate stuff's still kind of waiting on late because Warp and some of us the other day were kind of talking about how we want to outline everything first before we dive into that, because the C Core was a nice addition. It's kind of a nice little content addition to the game, but we should probably take a look at something like an addition like that overall to the game rather than piece by piece. As for the Korg, that's still partially or mostly waiting on sprites from Todd, and I don't want to rush him with that still. So
Yeah, we're pointing out like which Wanderer is part 3, because there's different people with different ideas.
that's why we were talking about earlier. I'd like to see kind of more of a conglomeration of something in the Discord.
Sam asks if I wanted to add automated tests to Endless Sky, where's a good place to learn? We already have integration tests and unit tests. So if you go to the repository, there's a tests folder. In there you can find our existing integration and unit tests.
Ooh, big balance pier just got opened.
I saw.
Interesting.
All right. Lightning round. Ask your many questions,
Right.
then we'll hop off.
What,
Benny says, "Oh, shaking my head. The campfire chat is today. He just showed up."
oh no.
And it's over. It was today, yeah. Sure says, "Ew, Benny's here. Everyone clear out."
Don't be mean.
When are we getting an officially sanction or an official sanction for the Minecraft server? Whenever I get an invite, I don't know. I haven't seen an invite posted.
New rule: if we're doing fast fire questions, someone different has to ask the question. You can't say 3 questions in a row. Let me quickly check Twitch.
I think the last thing on Twitch was just Stripe asking about like what an actual other side to the Remnant campaign be fighting for the Korth. I mean, potentially. You never know.
Maybe there also might be like a different society of how the Remnant work. Who knows? But yeah.
Oh, Doom says we will indeed be placing official sanctions against the Minecraft server. Have you been in contact with an order regarding the Korthport quest? I have not. There's a Minecraft server? Yes, there is. Anything else? Another minute, and then I'll sign us off.
Yeah, these aren't very fast. Last time they were really fast questions. Come on.
Doom says, unfortunately, it uses Fabric rather than Forge. That's a you problem. Sam says, I would like to refactor some of my merged and unmerged code into unit testable parts long term. I mean, that's always the plan long term. I will note, though, that we're not like zealots about having everything unit tested, so I don't know how much we want to spend on refactoring stuff just for the sake of making it unit testable. Especially because a lot of stuff relies on so much other stuff in the game that it's hard to unit test to begin with. Should I wait before opening part 2 of sourcing until I have found sources, or should I open it now as a draft? Sourcing? Oh, for the copyright images. There's more, asks Warp. I would say that's up to you. If you have a good portion of them sourced, I think that's fine to open as draft. And if it's taking a long time and you still can't find sources for some of them, then maybe we just accept part 2 as is and hope for a part 3 in the future.
Quick, Benny, you have a chance for one question since you just got here. Let's go.
Yeah, Benny, you get the last question. You have no idea what we were talking about the whole time, but you get one question. What the?
But what is not a question?
It has the word "what" in it. I just woke up.
Jeopardy music plays.
Hurl says that unit tests can be a pain to work with, and Peter says there are plans to improve it. Some very old plans, but there are plans. The other Benny Lux, says leave him alone. Benny Lux be like, I have kinship with this man.
Ebot, did you try making that text-to-speech? Benny asks. What are you gonna do? Give me $100 or merge my PRs? Benny did not ask that.
Several people are typing. I don't even know if Benny is still typing.
They're all Benny.
Oh, there it is. Benny is typing.
That's not for me.
When can you look at Adelita? Let's do it next stream I do. How about that?
Ooh.
I might
Yeah.
stream tomorrow.
I think
No
tomorrow
promises.
you should or next stream you should Adelita and
Let's do Tuesday.
Mass
Let's actually do
Bane.
Tuesday. I want a weekend where I'm not exploding.
Turd Arc.
Tuesday the 7th. Let's do that.
I
Afternoon.
mean, Ty reviewed Turd Arc. He said it looks pretty good. So you can probably just get that one real quick.
Whoops, he said he has a lot of free time tomorrow. Yeah, free time I want to use to relax.
Yeah.
Azure asks, are we still on for next Sunday? Yes. Yes, that has not changed as of right now. It's a date. Yeah, me and Azure are going on a date on the 12th. Can I come? No. Three's a crowd, you know.
Pig's Derpy's girlfriend. How do you feel about this?
No comment. All right, well, let's wrap this up here. All right, well, thank you, everyone, for showing up for today's Campfire Chat. The next one will be the 1st of June. Reminder that we do these the first Saturday of every month. And June's first Saturday just so happens to also be the first day of the month. So that's interesting there. We have a submission box where you can submit questions beforehand, assuming you're not able to show up during the actual time that these run for. And these are also recorded or live streamed on Twitch at the same time that we have them happening here. And that will then be posted on YouTube after the Twitch stream is up. Sog has posted the submission box for you, but I will post it again after I've closed the rooms here. Any other final comments from any of the devs here? Any goodbyes? Or are we just signing off? Warp is typing. That's
Guess we're
dangerous.
just signing off. Have a nice day.
All right.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, Peter.
Thanks.
Warp says, you haven't seen the last of me now. Goodbye forever.
Yeah. May the force be with you.
Ah, yes, yes. All right. Adios.